Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you. Thank you, Boris Britt. Thank you, Unity Band. You guys are great. One of the things that we've been doing in this time of not having our public services live in the sanctuary, and really just in this time of strangeness, and there's no game plan for this. Nobody has ever walked through this in this way. And I have a practice where I reach out to people who have been instrumental in my own path, giving me wisdom and guidance. And so I've been doing these interviews and sharing a portion of it. So today, I'm going to share with you a portion of an interview I did with Mary Morrissey. I talked to her on Wednesday. Mary is very, very instrumental in my path and in helping me to discern the way I wanted to go forward with my work. And she also has a close relationship to this community. She's been here many times. Many of her coaches and are people in our community who are now spreading her work out into the world. So enough about that. The whole interview is about 25 minutes. We make it available. It'll be on all of our platforms, YouTube, social media, or website later this afternoon. But I wanted to give you just a sneak peek of that. Here's about 4 minutes of my interview with Mary Morrissey for Mother's Day for you, Unity of Houston. So we are celebrating Mother's Day this week, and I want to wish you a happy Mother's Day, a little early as we're doing this interview on the Wednesday before. And I've heard you speak so much about your experience as being a mom and a grandmother, and then also your own relationship with your own mom. And you talked about those last years of her life being the most productive and rich. And so I just, what's the greatest gift you have received from motherhood that you would like to share with me today?
Oh, that's a beautiful question, Michael. Tomorrow is the 10th anniversary of my mother's death.
Oh, wow.
So it's been very much in my mind in reflection. She had a heart attack. She came to visit for a week, had a heart attack. She was going to pass. So then she had a whole day where she could call everyone that she knew, and she was slipping. And then she said, if I can just get out of here before midnight tonight, Mary, my death day will never be on Mother's Day.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought, who thinks this way? Who thinks this way? And then I knew who tends to think that way is a woman who didn't have a mother. My mother's mother died when my mother was too young to ever remember her. So she was 3. And so there was always the gap of wishing that she had that presence in her life. So she poured herself into being, not all moms then pour themselves into being a great mom, but she had a great grandmother who taught her. So for me, the greatest gift of being a mom is not just when my kids were little and growing, and then every era is the next level of not just their curriculum, but mine. Yeah. Including as they become adults, parenting adult children, where you're no longer, have the right to give advice unasked, as you become. I wanted to be a great mom during my earlier years, but I realized as my children grew up, my oldest son is 52, my youngest son is 41. So I've got a nice bookend on these kids, and I've got a daughter in there too. It's just all different curriculum, and the same thing with the grandkids. You have a different relationship, actually different rights, not like you had as the birth parent. So finding your way with that, seeking to be a rich influence of support and care and encouragement, but not a director. So it's just always curriculum for me. And I wanted to speak to the fact that I have not only 4 beautiful kids I gave birth to, but I have in my life amazing what I call bonus kids.
That's right.
And they live in my heart in the same way. And I'm just very grateful. So yeah, I think, and sometimes we have adopted kids. I don't mean legally adopted, although we can. I mean kids, nieces, nephews. We don't have to birth children. We can mother projects. I mean, for any woman, and every one of us here, every one of us listening to this message, we had a mom. It may not, she may not, we will never know. As much as we think we know about her story, we will never know her entire story. We will never know her entire story, the influencers that helped shape her. And remember, our mothers came from a different era. Many of our mothers never even heard of unity, didn't know that we could shift our thinking. They didn't know. They can only lead us to the level of their highest awareness, and some of them didn't have a ton of awareness. So on Mother's Day, no matter what the upbringing, no matter what it is, and whether they're in this dimension or the next, that woman was the means by which I got to come into this experience called my human life. And we can have reverence and deep, deep gratitude for all the things that she ever did or didn't do in our lives, because if anything had been different, we would be different.
Wow. So much wisdom, right? So much a mom's wisdom, a mother's love. So that is what we're talking about today. I liked what Mary said about what is required of the mom is different at each stage of life. You know, what's required for a newborn is very different from what's required once they start crawling, and you can't just plant them and leave them there. You've got to, that's a different. You have to start playing defense, right? When they're getting around every place, and then it's every stage of life, and that continues. And there was a mom whose her oldest daughter was about to be married, and the mother knew that there was a moment of teaching, sort of a final piece of wisdom that she could offer to her own daughter before she launched into her own life, creating her own family. And she took her daughter aside before the ceremony. She said, "Honey, I want to tell you something, that if you cook a man a fish, he eats for one day. But if you teach a man to fish, you'll have the house to yourself for the weekend." It's important advice. So the last few years on Mother's Day, well, let me just tell you what's happened here. 7, 8, 9 years ago, a dear friend of mine in this community, and she came to me, she asked for a meeting with me, and she shared with me that Mother's Day was the hardest day for her to come to Unity of Houston, that she had a lifelong dream of having children of her own and being a mom, and it never happened. And that she said coming to church on Mother's Day felt like a kick in the stomach. And so it moved me so much. And so I talked to Howard and I talked to our staff, and I said, maybe we should shift the way we've been looking at Mother's Day. And so we've been focusing the last few years on the divine feminine and the mother in all of us, that we all have this energy. And I think it's been beautiful. And last year, another dear friend of mine in this community came to me after that last year's Mother's Day, and she said, Michael, it was so hurtful to come to church and not be honored as a mom. So, it's sometimes, as I don't know exactly the way to approach this, that it's a little sticky sometimes, but I will tell you, my friend last year who came to me, I think that we have overcorrected. And today, I want to really honor our earthly moms. I want to honor Mother's Day. As those of you who've been sitting under my teaching for a while, you know that I make a lot of space for the human experience within our divine reality. That we get to have the full spectrum of human experience. And so if Mother's Day is difficult for you, and it is for many, for those who wanted to have kids and never did, those whose children have gone, they've passed away or they're out of their lives, those mothers who are struggling in the relationship with their children. There's so many things that can be difficult about this. What I'm going to ask you to do is just make room for that. That the spiritual reality of who you are is big enough to hold all of the pain that may be surrounded around Mother's Day for you. And some of you may have not had the great nurturing relationship with your mom, and that too can make Mother's Day difficult. And again, I'm just going to invite you to hold a space of love around that we don't have to deny it, and we don't have to feel any remorse or regret. It just is what it is, and we get to move forward. So thinking about Mother's Day, I can't help but thinking about my own mom. And she's the firstborn daughter. She had an older brother, but if you know anything about birth order, firstborn daughters, they take charge. And my mom was kind of the surrogate mom to her younger siblings, and when her sister was born 10 years after, my mom was 10, when my Aunt Donna was born, my mom told me, she's like, that was my baby. And she just kind of took her. And then when their mother, my grandmother, died, when my Aunt Donna was still in high school, my mom just wrapped her arms around her sister. My mom is a natural mom. She has 3 boys. I'm the middle. And I will tell you that she was not the same mom to the 3 of us. We were all different people. We needed different things, and she knew that intuitively and instinctively. She knew how to mother each of us. I've shared this before, that out of just my mom and my dad, there are now about 30 from offspring, from kids and grandkids. And towards the end of my dad's life, it got really crowded in our house at Christmas, and you sometimes get grumpy with all these kids running around, the greats. And, at one point, I think, before my dad died, I think we had 26 or 28 people that had emerged from their union. And it was a little noisy. And I remember my last Christmas at the house I grew up in, and my dad had the early stages of Alzheimer's, and he was a little grumpy. And here are all of these grandchildren, and now great-grandchildren, the children of their grandchildren. And it was hectic. And my mother had made enough food. Well, she made enough food for 80, but she was feeding 30. And she had been working for days to prepare this meal. And, some of the other daughters-in-law and granddaughters said, can we help? No. And so my mom finished the meal. She prepared it. My dad spoke the blessing. And then my mom went over to her 2 granddaughters who had the youngest newborns, and she grabbed those babies up, and she said, you all are the mom. You're the young moms. I know how hard it is. You go through the line first. And she sat down, and I wish I had brought the picture today to show you. She sat just exhausted with these 2 less than a year-old babies, the most happy, contented, and fulfilled being I've ever seen in my life. And I'm so grateful I took the picture. So I have this wonderful example in my life of what motherhood is, of how the service, the nurturing, the growing of people that is required by it. And I'm so grateful. So Mom, I don't know if you're watching this morning or not, but I love you. I thank you for everything that you have given into my life. It's tricky, this mom thing. And there's an article I read in The Atlantic recently that said that, the President of the United States gets so much criticism, no matter which party has their guy in there, that they're so criticized because the job is so big, nobody can do it well. They said that there's not a single person who can adequately represent the interest of 327 million individuals. I think it may be the hardest job on earth, except for mom. Because I think what is being asked for from our mothers is so huge. It's so foundational. So as we are honoring our moms today, I want us, as we're making room to integrate this very human experience of motherhood, I want us to all hold this space for our moms that truly they all do the best they can do. I love what Mary said in the interview, with the awareness they had. And we don't know, we live in a time where, I just want to say this, in previous generations and still today, but more in the past, there was a lot of undiagnosed mental illness. There was a lot of unspoken addiction. There was a lot of unrecovered childhood abuse. There were so many things that mothers were carrying. And so often, they were not able to give what was really needed for the babies that were in their care. And I know that some did not have even the experience of being raised by the woman that birthed her. But you were grown under her heart. You see, this is the most common thing to being human, is that each of us, our bodies were grown within the body of our mom, resting under her heart. If we can honor thy mother, as the scripture tells us, for what she did or did not bring, if we can, as Mary said, if nothing else, And John says this a lot. My partner does this great work called Family Constellations, that if nothing else, you can thank and honor your earthly mom for giving you the gift of life, for giving you this opportunity to step into your own expression of a human lifetime, to all of your curriculum to learn and to grow. It's a really hard job. Let's honor our moms today. It feels so important. Robert Browning, the great poet, has a very short poem, and it's called Mothers. And it says simply this: all love begins and ends there. This whole month, we're exploring the realization of spirit, how we take the truth of the indwelling presence, the Christ mind that dwells in us, how we begin to live it into our lives. And today, I wanted to focus not only about our mom and child relationship, but I also want to focus on all of our relationships. And here's what I've come to understand. The relationship with mom is so foundational that if it's unhealed, it will show up in all your relationships. And so if you had the great joy and blessing of having a wonderful, healed and whole, loving mom like I did, then today on this Mother's Day, you get to give great thanks for that. And if you did not have that joy, if you did not have the gift of having a mom who was whole enough to give her love in that way, you are invited into the experience of forgiveness. Because as long as we're holding any resentment or unhealed energy between us and the woman who gave us birth, it will be a block in all of our relationships. So there is a wholeness that is required in our relationship with mom for a richness and a fully realized experience of spirituality in our life of relationships. As I mentioned, my partner John Moore does this wonderful work called Family Constellations, and it's about healing unconscious family loyalties. And just like in psychotherapy, Dr. Brailsford, if it's not one thing, it's your mother. That there's always something in that prime relationship that is for our healing. And we never finish it. And just want to say this too, my mom was great, wonderful mom. She wasn't perfect. I don't think she'd mind me saying this. You've all heard the saying, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. That was the way it worked in our house. And she owned it. She owned her humanity. She would have her experience of being mad or disappointed or frustrated. All of those things happened. And there was this spaciousness in her, which is that divine feminine. I'm going to mention it today. Just to be able to hold the space for the whole experience. John was working with some women in Virginia. It was a women's group doing this Family Constellations work, and John was teaching this concept that we must heal the relationship with mom. Whether or not you even knew her, it must be healed for you to live the fullness of your life in relationships and in many areas of life. And he suggested as a practice that it was a small group of women. He said, take a photograph of your mom and put it on your nightstand and ask her to communicate with you as you sleep. And he said there was this audible gasp. I don't want my mother in my bedroom. And yet, that is what's being asked for. Making a space and healing, forgiveness. And remember, forgiveness doesn't mean that we condone what happened or didn't happen. It means that we accept that the past will never be different. And so here's the great joy. I love that we have such an inclusive understanding of who and what God is, that God is frugal, meaning wasting nothing. Everything that happens in your life is for your growth and your good. And so no matter what is there in your relationship with mom, by integrating it, you get the gift. It is the very pathway of your becoming. So we honor you, Mom, in all that you did and didn't do, all that you could and could not do. You are worthy of our honor. This understanding of the primacy of this relationship and the foundational nature of it was known to the people in the ancient times too. In the book of Proverbs, it says, "Raise up a child in the way that he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it." That what is given to children at this young age is so crucial to how they will emerge. But it doesn't mean that if you didn't get that, you won't find your path of wholeness, that it's all working together for your good. So I want to speak for just a moment about this. I've been walking a lot, during this time that the gyms are closed and everything, and it's a great processing time for me. And I don't want to lay out a whole new system of understanding the eternal life and the migration of the soul through lifetimes. And that's way beyond my pay grade. But I was thinking about this, and these words I'm going to use kind of loosely, but I think this is just, the gospel according to Michael Gott. Take it or leave it. But there's something that helps me understand how to put these concepts into containers. I believe our spirit is our individualized expression of the one spirit. Our spirit has never known pain, loss, separation, birth, or death. It is inviolable. It cannot be touched. That is our spirit. Our earthly experience, and I would say it includes our body, and it includes our personality and our ego structure. We don't take those forward in lifetimes. We leave those here. When we die, the ego dies with the body. In the middle, there's something that a lot of people call it the soul, and that's as good a word as I know. It's some aspect of our being that does indeed grow through time and eternity. It receives impressions from the personal experience in the individualized, incarnate experiences, and it comes with a path. I had the privilege in ministerial school of studying under Amit Goswami, who is a quantum physicist from the University of Oregon, who also has a deep understanding of Hinduism. He is Indian, and he seeks to reconcile quantum physics with the Tibetan Book of the Dead from Buddhism, and teach that some of the ancients knew the way of our soul's evolution through time. And he speaks of the multiple bodies that we have. We have the gross body, which is this, right? We have the mental body. And then he has something we call the theme body, which in his lovely Indian accent, he called the team body. And it took me a minute to figure out what he was saying. But the theme body means that we are carrying from lifetime to lifetime a theme of exploration, something I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn about how I can grow and become all that I can be. And so I've come to understand that who I truly am can never be harmed or touched by the difficulties of life's experience. And part of my evolutionary becoming takes all that happens for good and for ill and uses it for growth and for healing. So you are on your path of becoming, and whatever mom did or did not do is worthy of your honor, and is worthy of your attention, and worthy of your love. I want to talk for a moment about the gift of what mothers can bring. There's a story, it's been told quite a few times by Dr. Jane Goodall herself and other people about her, but happened when she was 4 years old. She had been taken for the summer to live with her father's family. Her father was away, and her mother had gone to live with the in-laws for the summer, and it was on a farm. And Jane was 4, and she was already very interested and curious about the natural world, and she knew that eggs came from chickens, as all children learn. But she was like, how does that happen? And she saw on this farm, there were both eggs and there were chickens. How does it happen? And she would look at the chickens, natural curiosity, and she would say, where does that egg come from? So she devised a plan. She was going to, first of all, she followed the hen into the hen house, but the hen would not lay with her sitting there. She's like, I've got to get there first. And so she went into the hen house and she hid and waited for the hen to come in and lay the egg for hours. She began to hear people calling for her, her mom, her grandma. People were concerned. She could hear the agitation rising. It got to the point where they even called the police to search for the missing child, but Jane Goodall stayed right there in the hen house. And she watched the hen half stand, and between the feathers, she saw a white dot, and the egg emerged and dropped into the nest. The hen clucked happily, poked at it for a moment, and just went on her way. Jane was so inspired by having finally seen how it happened, how the egg came from the chicken, that she ran out of the hen house, she found her mother, and her mother did something I think is so interesting. You can imagine yourself. Your child's been missing for hours, you've already called the police, you don't know what happened, and she comes running up to you excited. What would most mothers do? Oh my God, I can't believe you're okay. Why didn't you call? What? She didn't do any of that. She had such wisdom, and she was so committed to nurturing this curiosity in her daughter. She said, tell me about it. Tell me about what happened. Later, as Jane Goodall, even before she had any degrees in primatology, as you know, she felt so connected to the natural world and to our closest cousins biologically, the chimpanzees in Tanzania, that she actually moved there, and even before she really had the training, what she had was a natural passion and curiosity. She later did receive the education and training that she needed, but do you know who went with her to Africa to aid her in her studies? Her mom. When she was well on in years, she cooked for her and cleaned for her and just supported this daughter. I think there's something about moms that wants their children to find their way. They want their children to be who they are. My relationship with my mom has been great. We've had some troubled times, and there were definitely years where, through my addiction and all of that, where my mom, I'm sure, was praying hard and had no idea how her middle boy was going to come out of all this. I remember at an early age when I began to show some interest in music. And by the way, I don't come from a musical family. Some members of my family came and play the radio. They are just not a musical bunch. But when I had the interest, my mom and my dad, but they nurtured that in me. My mom always said, Michael, your music is anointed. And she had the joy of seeing me come through those difficult years. And the nurturing that she gave to me of my talent and my gift stayed with me through the difficulty. And I never let it go. I think the greatest gift a mother can do is to see their child as an individual, not as an extension of themselves, but to support them on their authentic path. Khalil Gibran writes this, your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life's longing for itself. They come through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they do not belong to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts, for they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls, for their souls dwell in the house of tomorrow, which you cannot visit, not even in your dreams. You may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. For life goes not backward, nor tarries with yesterday. You are the bows from which your children, as living arrows, are sent forth. The archer sees the mark upon the path of the infinite, and he bends you with his might, and that his arrows may go swift and far. Let your bending in the archer's hand be for gladness. For even as he loves the arrow that flies, so he loves the bow that is stable. To all of our moms doing the hardest job on earth, thank you. We love you. God bless you. Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.